I'm Alex Paulton. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, we're going to take a look at the ultimate Rolex homage, the Tudor Prince Date, which is a really nice-looking piece. And it's a Tudor, which means that it was created to be a sister to Rolex, and then, of course, in recent times has developed its own identity. But in its original incarnation, it was intended to be a way for people to get their hands on Rolex quality at a reasonable price. And those of you who watch my channel know that I like to compare cars and watches. My father was a mechanic, and he's a better mechanic than I ever was, but I like to think of myself as a mechanic. And actually, I've owned a couple of the vehicle that I want to compare it to, and that is the Porsche 924, not the 944, the 924. Now, a lot of people who don't know Porsches well will think that the 924 and the 944 were the same car type, just variations. And in one sense, you're right, but in another sense, you're wrong. The 924 was conceived in the same concept as the 914, which was a Volkswagen Porsche project. The 924 was also intended to be a Volkswagen Porsche project, and Volkswagen backed out at the last minute, and Audi became the partner for the 924. And so the 924 had a Porsche body, Porsche suspension system, Porsche design, Porsche DNA, as it were, and an Audi motor, which is the exact same situation with the Tudor Prince Date. Rolex design, Rolex DNA, the first Tudor's Prince Date. This is a Tiger. It's an older model, so it has a Tudor branded crown, but the first generation of Prince Dates had Rolex crowns. So very much so, they wanted to identify the Prince Date as, a poor man's Porsche, as it were. By this, you get the Rolex DNA, but you get a reliable movement, but not a Rolex movement. And you also, of course, don't get the Rolex branding, which was the positive aspect of the 914 and the 924. They were both, although hybrid vehicles with other divisions within the company, were branded Porsche. And they're actually very good cars. Like I said, I've owned a couple of them myself over the years. I've never owned anything more powerful than a 944, but I'm very familiar with the 924 and 944 series of cars. They're fantastic vehicles. And the 944 has the big differential. People see the flared fenders, but that's just cosmetic. The big difference between the 924 and the 944 is the 944 actually had a Porsche engine in it. What they did was they took the 928's engine, which was a 5-liter V8, and they literally cut it in half. I mean, they didn't physically cut it in half because that doesn't make much sense, but they took half of the design of the engine, as it were. They took the one bank of 4 cylinders and designed an engine around that. And then they put a couple of balancing shafts into the engine to compensate for the missing cylinders. And you wound up with a 4-cylinder that actually sounded and performed like a 6, because it was actually a very, very big but well-balanced 4-cylinder. I mean, a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine is pretty big. So the Tiger Prince, I should say the Tudor Prince Date. I keep saying Tiger because mine's a Tiger, but the Tudor Prince Date is an epitome, a perfect example of that kind of thinking. Rolex DNA, in this case, a Value 7750, which is a workhorse of the industry. Watch check, I'm wearing my Breitling Navitimer GMT, and it's a Value 7750. This Longines is a Value 7750, although Longines has ETA make it with a column wheel instead of the cam system. And actually, this Omega Polaris is a 7750. And what we'll do is we'll look at all of these 7750s up close with the Tiger, the Prince Date when we flip the camera around. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. So here we are up close with the Tudor Prince Date. As I said, this is the Tiger version of it. It's actually a very attractive watch. It's got a lot going for it. Like I said, very much the Rolex DNA. It's got the oyster case shape. It's got the crown guards, the screw down pushers, very much the DNA of the Rolex Daytona. And it does have solid end links. The bracelet is very nicely done. It does have screwed links. The clasp is your typical last generation Rolex stamped steel. Not bad, but in comparison to what's available now, this is comical. But the execution itself is gorgeous. These brushed and polished links, kind of like a Jubilee, it really does stand well for the piece, and it does look very striking. It's a sharp-looking watch. Now, like I said, we can compare it to a couple of other 7750s. This is the Longines Triple Date moon phase, and it has a 7750 base as well, but Longines goes and has Etta make them a version with a column wheel as opposed to cams. So but then again, they're Longines, so they get the cool version of the 7750. This is the plain Jane version of the 7750. Rolex may have done some finishing, but it's still a cam movement. And of course, they both have the typical 7750 unidirectional winding issue, wobble. I don't mind it personally. And then here's another 7750 piece that I happen to have handy. And if you notice one of the easy tells, there are other chronos that do it, but the vertical layout on the subdials is a giveaway on the 7750, and it also has it lends itself well to complications. In this case, these are just simple date complications, but you can see some of the DNA between the movements, as it were. So, like I was saying, the Prince Date is the 924 of watches. It's got all of the Rolex DNA on the outside, and it's got someone else's DNA on the inside. But otherwise, it has all of the other beautiful aspects of Daytona. The nice casework, the bezel, steel bezel with the tachymeter. Now, again, this is a great watch for someone who wants a striking sports steel piece and doesn't want to break the bank. You can get something like this for about $4,000, give or take, compared to the 20, give or take, that you would have to pay for a Daytona, if you could even find one at 20. Again, a beautiful piece, and something that is excellent for someone who would like to try out the look and feel of a really high-end luxury piece without having to spend extremely high-end luxury dollars. I mean, $4,000 is still a serious amount of money to spend and puts it totally in the realm of luxury pieces. It has, and as I said, Tudor has a legacy and a horology history of its own right. But this specific model is, the kind of like the bastard child. And like I said, the Porsche 924. For some who prefer, I would suggest the Pelagos or the Black Bay 58 or the North Flag, which is the one I'm actually thinking of picking up next, and I want to see if I fall in love with it. The way I buy watches, I buy them, I hope I fall in love with them, and if I don't, I review them and I move them along. So let's take a quick look at the measurements. I mean, this is just your straightforward, see, it's a 3940 case. I mean, I measured at the bezel, and it's actually reasonably thin at 13.8 for something with a value 7750 in it, because it's not the thinnest movement out there, but it is a very rugged, durable, and reliable movement. The lug width is a straight 20. And so you could put this on a bunch of different straps as well. I have had this on a NATO and done some other things with it, and it's got through hole lugs, so you can easily swap straps on this at the drop of a hat. So, yeah, again, beautiful watch. It has its own legacy. The company has its own legacy. And this is a great watch for somebody who would like to have a Rolex Daytona, but just couldn't swing it, but don't want to get, a third-party homage. This is about the most legitimate homage you can get, because it's made by Rolex and it has all of their DNA in it. So if you wanted a Daytona but didn't want to drop the price of a good used car on it, this is the route to go. So let's flip the camera around and close out the episode. So that was the Tudor Prince Date. This is a Tiger version. I had different thoughts about Tudor when I first started on my watch collecting journey, and over time I realized that it had its own history, its own DNA, and its own legacy. And that's actually why I've already sold this watch. I'm filming this today because I'm literally walking it down to the post office. I had it a few months. I really like the way it looks, but it's a Porsche 924. And I'm realizing that if I want a Tudor, I should get something like the Pelagos or the Black Bay 58, or actually I've got my eyes right now. I'm negotiating with somebody in Spain who's got a North Flag. And I think the North Flag is a sleeper. So, yes, I would much rather get the Audi Quattro than the Porsche 924. The Quattro, same era, 80s, four-wheel drive, first beautiful production sports vehicle with four-wheel drive, and its own fantastic car. So yes to Tudor, yes to the Prince Date. I'm not knocking the Prince Date because, like I said, it is that type of a vehicle, as it were, and I've owned them myself in my lifetime, but I'm realizing that there's not really a place for this in my collection. If I'm going to have a Tudor, I should have a true Tudor, as it were, something that expresses Tudor's DNA, like I said, like the North Flag or the Pelagos or the Black Bay 58, although the 58 has a whole lot of first-generation sub-DNA in it. So, those are my thoughts. Please leave yours in the comments below. And by the way, I'm officially 2 years doing this channel, and we're over 400 subscribers, which is excellent growth for a hobby channel that doesn't do any promotion. And I'd like to think it's because I talk about what I think about, and hopefully you like to think about that kind of stuff too. And I've had some very good discussions in the comment sections with some very cool people. And this has turned out to be a fantastic experience. The community that I'm developing, the people that I'm coming to know, it's all just been a wonderful experience. And frankly, if this is what I have after 2 years, I can't wait to see what the next 20, God willing, bring to me. But for now, thanks for taking the time to watch. Please subscribe. And this is Alex Paul signing off for Talking Timepieces.